Captain Sarah Mitchell stood at the helm of the ESS Pioneer, her weathered hands gripping the command rail as the ship's fusion drive pushed them deeper into the Kuiper Belt. 20 years of spaceflight experience hadn't prepared her for what their sensors had just detected. A massive fleet of ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever constructed, materializing from what appeared to be tears in space itself. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from his station, voice steady despite the circumstances. "We're receiving a transmission." It's in English." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Their vessel, humanity's most advanced deep space expedition ship, suddenly felt like a rowboat in an ocean of battleships. The main display flickered to life, revealing a tall, silvery-skinned being with 4 arms and eyes that seemed to shimmer with internal light. "Greetings, explorers of Earth," the alien spoke, its perfect Oxford accent adding an surreal element to an already extraordinary moment. "I am High Commander Zixtal of the Galactic Confederation. We've been watching your species' fumbling steps into space with some interest." Mitchell bit back a sharp retort. 20 years of diplomatic training kicked in. "High Commander, I am Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Earth Spaceship Pioneer. On behalf of humanity, we welcome peaceful contact." The alien's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile, but looked more like a predator's assessment of prey. "How charming. Your ship's primitive fusion drive caught our attention. We hadn't expected you to make it this far with such basic technology." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. Earth's government scrambled to respond to the situation, and the Pioneer's crew found themselves invited aboard the Confederation flagship for what was termed a cultural exchange. The alien vessel, Kingdom's Glory, dwarfed the Pioneer like a whale next to a minnow. As Mitchell led her senior staff through its crystalline corridors, she noticed her science officer, Dr. James Walker, discreetly scanning everything with his datapad. The aliens either didn't notice or didn't care. The reception hall took their breath away. A vast chamber with walls that seemed to be made of living light, filled with dozens of alien species. Some floated in containment fields, others walked on multiple legs, and a few appeared to be made of pure energy. High Commander Zixtal made his way to a raised platform, his 4 arms spread wide in what humans would later learn was a gesture of superiority. "My fellow Confederation members, behold our newest discovery, humanity." His voice carried a note of amusement that made Mitchell's jaw clench. "They've managed to achieve fusion power and basic shield technology. Quite an achievement for such a young species." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Mitchell noticed Dr. Walker's hand tighten on his datapad as the alien commander continued his patronizing speech. "We've decided," Zixtal announced, "to offer Earth-protected species status. They'll be allowed limited trade rights and restricted access to approved technology. For their own safety, of course. We wouldn't want them to advance too quickly and hurt themselves." More laughter. Mitchell watched as her crew maintained their diplomatic smiles, but she saw the fire in their eyes. Dr. Walker was practically vibrating with contained energy, his mind clearly racing with the possibilities presented by even this limited glimpse of advanced technology. The reception continued, with various alien diplomats approaching to pat them on the head metaphorically. Each demonstration of advanced technology was presented with the air of adults showing toys to children. Antimatter containment fields, quantum communication arrays, and energy-to-matter fabricators were displayed with casual indifference. What the Confederation representatives failed to notice was the intense focus in every human's eyes. While they saw primitives staring in awe, they missed the engineers mentally reverse engineering every system, the physicists questioning their fundamental assumptions about the universe, and the tacticians noting every potential weakness in the aliens' defenses. As they prepared to return to the Pioneer, High Commander Zixtal approached Captain Mitchell one final time. "Don't be discouraged by your species' limitations," he said with what he probably thought was kindness. "In a few centuries, you might be advanced enough to petition for provisional membership." Mitchell smiled, a gesture that didn't reach her eyes. "We look forward to surprising you, High Commander." She couldn't have known then just how prophetic those words would prove to be, or how quickly humanity would turn its supposed limitations into its greatest strengths. Dr. Michael Anderson stood in the control room of Project Breakthrough, deep beneath the Atacama Desert, watching as another prototype drive core collapsed in on itself. The holographic display showed the familiar pattern of quantum field destabilization that had plagued their efforts for the past 6 months. "That's the 70th failure," Dr. Rachel Thompson said, running her fingers through her graying hair. "Maybe the Confederation was right about us not being ready for this level of technology." Anderson turned to his colleague, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Actually, this is exactly what we needed to see." He walked to the central display, fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "We've been trying to copy their approach to FTL travel. But look at this." The failed test data swirled before them, and Anderson highlighted a particular pattern in the quantum fluctuations. "Every time we try to force a stable wormhole like their drives do, it collapses. But look at the millisecond before collapse." Thompson leaned forward, her eyes widening. "The quantum field. It's not just collapsing. It's redirecting itself." "Exactly." Anderson's excitement was contagious. "We've been so focused on pushing through space that we never considered pulling ourselves through it instead." The next 3 months transformed the underground facility into a hive of activity. The Confederation's restrictions on advanced technology had forced Earth's scientists to think creatively. Instead of fighting against the quantum barriers between points in space, Anderson's team developed a method to slide between them. Lieutenant Jessica Martinez, their test pilot, sat in the simulator as Anderson explained the concept. "Think of it like swimming," he said, pulling up a visualization. "The Confederation's ships are like powerboats, forcing their way through the water. Our approach is more like riding the current, using dark matter corridors as natural pathways." Martinez nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. "We're not fighting against space-time. We're letting it carry us." The breakthrough came on a quiet Tuesday morning. In a sealed chamber deep underground, a test probe vanished in a flash of blue light. 1 second later, it appeared in another chamber 5 kilometers away. The room erupted in cheers, but Anderson was already running calculations for the next test. Word of the success reached the United Earth government within hours. Project Breakthrough received emergency funding and priority status. Within weeks, the first full-scale prototype of the slingshot drive was under construction in a hidden facility beneath the lunar surface. High Commander Zixtal's monthly inspection of Earth's technological development brought him to the public research facilities in Houston. "Impressive progress on your fusion containment," he noted, examining the carefully prepared demonstrations. "Though still quite primitive by our standards." Dr. Anderson, invited as a representative of Earth's scientific community, maintained a polite smile. Behind him, through the facility's windows, the sun was setting over Texas. At that very moment, on the far side of the moon, the first human ship equipped with a slingshot drive was powering up its systems. "We're learning a great deal from the technical manuals you've provided," Anderson said, careful to maintain the expected tone of gratitude. "Though some concepts remain beyond our current understanding." Zixtal nodded indulgently. "Natural limitations of your species' cognitive development. We've seen similar patterns in other young races. In time, you may evolve to grasp the more complex principles." The test flight was scheduled for midnight. Lieutenant Martinez sat in the cockpit of the experimental vessel, her heart racing as she ran through the pre-flight checks. The ship, officially designated XS-001, but nicknamed Mercury by its crew, represented humanity's first real step toward independence among the stars. "Control, this is Mercury." Martinez's voice was steady. "All systems are go." Anderson watched from the control room as the final countdown began. The slingshot drive hummed to life, creating what they dubbed a quantum slit stream, a connection to the natural dark matter currents that flowed through space. In the Houston facility, Zixtal was concluding his inspection. "Keep up the good work," he said, preparing to return to his ship. "In a few decades, you might be ready for basic interplanetary travel technology." At that exact moment, Mercury made its first jump. Martinez's exhilarated whoop came through the quantum comm as the ship appeared precisely on target in high Mars orbit. The journey had taken less than 3 seconds. Humanity had just taken its first real step toward the stars, and the Confederation didn't even know it yet. Captain Rebecca Martinez watched the radar display aboard the merchant vessel Star Trader with practiced calm. 3 ships had just dropped out of FTL behind her small convoy, their energy signatures matching known patterns of the Black Nebula pirates. The notorious raiders had been preying on merchant ships in this sector for months, counting on the Confederation's bureaucratic response times to escape before help could arrive. "All ships, maintain course," Martinez transmitted to her convoy. "Standard merchant protocols." Her voice betrayed nothing of the anticipation building in her chest. After 6 months of running escort disguised as a simple trader, they'd finally caught someone's attention. The pirate vessels closed rapidly, their superior drives making short work of the distance. Their leader's transmission crackled through the command center. "Attention Earth vessels. Power down your primitive drives and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and we'll reduce your ships to atoms." Martinez allowed herself a small smile. "This is Captain Martinez of the Star Trader. Please, we're just simple merchants. We'll comply." She gestured to her communications officer to cut the transmission. "Status of the bouncer shield systems. Charged and ready, Captain. All power systems masked as standard cargo volt signatures." The pirates drew closer, their confidence evident in their loose formation. Earth vessels were considered easy prey, their technology too primitive to pose any real threat. The lead pirate ship launched a warning shot, a lance of plasma energy designed to fry the Star Trader's communications array. That's when everything changed. The plasma bolt struck the Star Trader's seemingly defenseless hull and vanished into a rippling field of gravitational distortion. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the energy burst reappeared, magnified tenfold, and slammed back into the pirate vessel's primary weapon array. By the void. The pirate leader's shock transmission cut through the silence. "What kind of shield is that?" Martinez keyed her comm. "The kind that doesn't appreciate uninvited guests. All ships, combat formations. Show them what Earth's primitive technology can do." The convoy's disguise melted away as hidden weapon ports opened along their hulls. The merchant ships transformed into the heavily armed escort vessels they truly were, their bouncer shields rippling with absorbed energy. The pirates attempted to retreat, but the humans had spent months perfecting this trap. The slingshot drives, still unknown to the wider galaxy, allowed Martinez's ships to cut off their escape routes with precision jumps that seemed to defy physics. "Impossible," one of the pirate crews transmitted as a human vessel appeared directly in their path. "Their drives can't be capable of that kind of maneuverability." The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. The pirates' energy weapons, their primary advantage against most prey, became their undoing against the bouncer shields. Each shot was caught, amplified, and returned with devastating accuracy. Martinez's ships herded them like sheepdogs, using their superior mobility to prevent any escape. When the last pirate vessel surrendered, Martinez allowed herself to relax slightly. "Damage report. Minimal, Captain. Bouncer shields absorbed 97% of incoming fire. Power reserves at 82% thanks to the energy recycling." Martinez nodded, satisfied. "Signal the Confederation patrol. Let them know we've apprehended some pirates who happened to stumble into our convoy." The Confederation response vessel arrived hours later, its commander clearly expecting to find destroyed or heavily damaged Earth ships. Instead, they found 3 captured pirate vessels and an intact human convoy. "How did you manage this?" the Confederation commander demanded, his translator barely keeping up with his rapid speech. "Your technology level shouldn't." "Lucky break," Martinez interrupted smoothly. The pirates seemed to have some technical difficulties with their weapons. We simply took advantage of the situation. As the Confederation took custody of the pirates, stories began spreading through the underground networks. Tales of Earth ships that could catch energy weapons and throw them back. Of vessels that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Of primitive humans who somehow turned the tables on superior technology. In her quarters later, Martinez composed her official report to Earth Command. The field test of both the bouncer shields and the combat applications of the slingshot drive had exceeded all expectations. But more importantly, they'd proven that humanity could more than hold its own among the stars. The report's final line read, "The pirates made one crucial mistake today. They assumed that primitive meant helpless. They won't be the last to make that error, but they might be the last to survive it." The ESS Daredevil hung at the edge of the Maelstrom Nebula, its sensors painting a terrifying picture of the chaos ahead. Streams of quantum energy twisted through the cosmic storm like serpents, while gravitational eddies strong enough to tear apart capital ships whirled in seemingly random patterns. Captain Emily Armstrong stood on her bridge, watching the swirling purple and green clouds through the main viewport. Behind her, a holographic projection of High Commander Zixtol flickered with barely concealed concern. "Captain Armstrong, this is madness," the alien commander insisted. "The Maelstrom has claimed over 300 ships. Even our most advanced vessels cannot predict its patterns. Turn back." Armstrong traced her finger along the navigational display, following a pattern only she could see. "With respect, Commander, I spent 3 months studying the nebula's movements. There's a rhythm to it, like ocean waves back on Earth." "Ocean waves don't tear ships into their component atoms," Zixtol countered. "The Confederation formally protests this foolish endeavor." Armstrong muted the transmission and turned to her crew. "Final checks, everyone. This is completely voluntary. Anyone who wants to transfer off can take the shuttle back to New Mars." Her bridge crew responded by strapping themselves more firmly into their stations. Lieutenant Sarah Parker, her navigator, gave a sharp nod. "Course plotted through the first gravitational edge, Captain. The slingshot drive is calibrated for micro-jumps. Engineering reports the quantum stabilizers are at 120% capacity." Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson added, "We've modified them to absorb gravitational shear instead of fighting it." Armstrong reopened the channel to Zixtol. "Your protest is noted, Commander. Daredevil out." She took her command chair, feeling the familiar embrace of the neural interface connecting her directly to her ship's systems. "All hands, prepare for nebula insertion. Thompson, give me everything the stabilizers have." The Daredevil moved forward, its hull gleaming as it approached the nebula's edge. The first gravitational wave hit them like a tsunami, but instead of fighting against it, Armstrong ordered the ship to roll with the impact. The quantum stabilizers absorbed the energy, converting it into extra power for their shields. First wave cleared, Parker announced, her hands dancing across her console, detecting a Class 9 shear front approaching from port. Armstrong closed her eyes, feeling the nebula's currents through her neural link. "There's a countercurrent underneath, inverting ship orientation. Thompson, prepare for a micro-jump on my mark." The Daredevil flipped upside down relative to its previous position, catching the lower current just as Armstrong had predicted. The ship shot forward, riding the gravitational stream like a surfer catching a wave. "Multiple shear points ahead," Parker warned. "Traditional navigation is impossible through this section." "Who said anything about traditional?" Armstrong smiled. "Transfer helm control to my neural interface. Parker, call out the energy readings. Thompson, prepare the slingshot drive for rapid micro-jumps." What followed would later be described by observers as either brilliant insanity or insane brilliance. Armstrong guided the Daredevil through the Maelstrom's fury not by fighting it, but by becoming part of it. Each gravitational wave was used to power the next jump. Each energy surge was absorbed and redirected to strengthen their shields. The Confederation observation posts tracked their progress with increasing amazement. The Daredevil danced through impossible gaps, used lethal energy streams as acceleration lanes, and turned deadly gravitational shears into navigational aids. 6 hours later, the Daredevil emerged from the other side of the maelstrom. The trip had taken a quarter of the time needed to go around the nebula. Armstrong's final transmission to the observation post was beautifully understated. Daredevil to control. Nebula passage completed. Establishing regular trade route markers now. The news spread across Confederation space at FTL speeds. A human ship, considered primitive by their standards, had accomplished what their best crews couldn't even attempt. When asked later how she'd managed it, Armstrong's response became legendary in both human and alien space academies. The maelstrom isn't a barrier to be conquered. It's a dance partner waiting for someone willing to learn its steps. Within a month, the Armstrong route through the maelstrom became the most profitable trade path in that sector of space, and at every Confederation academy, instructors began reluctantly adding a new course: human intuitive navigation techniques. The nebula that had been impossible to traverse became humanity's greatest proof that innovation trumped technological superiority every time. And somewhere in the Confederation's massive bureaucracy, a file on humanity's classification as a primitive species was quietly marked for urgent review. Admiral Thomas Wright stood before the Combined Fleet Command, his holographic presence dominating the emergency session. Behind him, tactical displays showed the devastating progress of the Volt swarm through Confederation space. 3 star systems had already gone dark, their planets stripped of resources by the crystalline high ships. With all due respect, Wright addressed the assembled alien commanders. Your current battle strategy is about as effective as throwing rocks at a tsunami. High Commander Zixtal, his silver skin dulled with exhaustion, raised all 4 hands in frustration. The swarm adapts to every formation we deploy. Our largest dreadnoughts are useless against their coordinated attacks. Wright loaded a new tactical display, showing footage from Earth's oceans. That's because you're thinking like a superior force trying to crush an inferior one. We need to think like the hunters our ancestors were. The footage showed a pod of Orcs hunting. On Earth, we learned long ago that sometimes the smallest predator can take down the largest prey. We don't need bigger ships. We need smarter tactics. Within hours, Earth's Third Fleet began implementing what Wright called the Wolf Pack Protocol. The massive Confederation dreadnoughts were broken up into smaller, more maneuverable battle groups. Each group consisted of 5 ships, 1 modified Earth vessel equipped with the latest slingshot drive as the pack leader, and 4 Confederation ships retrofitted with human combat systems. Lieutenant Commander Jack Reynolds led the first test of the new strategy. His ship, the ESS Timberwolf, coordinated with 4 Confederation vessels as they approached a lone swarm scout ship. The crystalline vessel, twice the size of Earth's largest carrier, moved with the artificial grace typical of its kind. Remember, Reynolds transmitted to his pack, "We're not trying to overpower it. We're hunting it. Maintain neural link synchronization." The human neural interfaces, originally designed for nebula navigation, had been modified to allow unprecedented coordination between ships. As the swarm scout detected them and launched its first attack, the wolf pack scattered in perfect formation. Phase 1. Reynolds commanded, "Show them the prey." 2 Confederation ships made themselves obvious targets, their energy signatures flaring. The swarm scout, programmed to recognize and counter Confederation tactics, moved to engage them with its crystalline energy lances. Phase 2. Blind the hunter. The remaining 2 Confederation ships emerged from hiding, using modified versions of the bouncer shields to catch and redirect the scouts' energy weapons. But instead of returning the fire, they created a complex interference pattern that confused the scouts' sensor crystals. Phase 3. Strike from the shadows. The Timber Wolf, running in ultra-stealth mode with minimal power signature, executed a precise slingshot jump. It emerged directly in the scout's blind spot, unleashing a new weapon developed specifically for this threat. The Shatterstorm torpedo didn't try to penetrate the Scout's crystalline hull. It matched its resonant frequency and amplified it. The Scout ship's beautiful crystalline structure vibrated once, twice, and then exploded into a cloud of inert fragments. News of the successful hunt spread quickly. Within days, wolf packs were being formed throughout Confederation space. Earth's neural interface technology and combat doctrine were distributed to every battle group. The swarm, encountering an enemy that fought like a predator instead of a simple opponent, began to fall back. Admiral Wright received the surrender transmission from the swarm overmind 3 weeks later. The crystalline intelligence had encountered many species in its consumption of galaxies, but never one that could turn its own nature against it so effectively. In the aftermath, Wright faced the Combined Fleet Command again. This time, there was no condescension in their postures, no dismissal of primitive human tactics. "We owe your species an apology," Sixtall admitted. "We assumed technological advancement was the only measure of superiority. You've proven that innovation and adaptability are far more valuable." Wright nodded in acknowledgement, but his mind was already on the next challenge. Humanity had proven itself in crisis, but maintaining that respect during peace would require just as much ingenuity. On his tactical display, the wolf pack fleets continued their patrols, human and alien crews working together with a synchronization that would have seemed impossible just months before. The Volt swarm had tried to consume the galaxy, only to discover that humanity's primitive hunting instincts were more than a match for their crystalline perfection. Dr. Catherine Williams stood in the center of the Mars Orbital Shipyard's holographic design chamber, surrounded by floating images of Earth's ocean life. To her left, a giant squid gracefully propelled itself through dark waters. To her right, a manta ray banked and turned with effortless precision. Life on Earth spent millions of years perfecting space travel, she explained to the gathered Confederation engineers. We just had to realize that our oceans were the first space our planet's life had to conquer. The central hologram shifted to display the prototype of the new Chimera-class vessel. Its sleek hull looked almost organic, covered in overlapping plates that resembled fish scales. The problem with traditional ship design, Williams continued, is that we build rigid structures and then try to protect them. Nature taught us a better way: build structures that adapt to threats. Commander Marcus Rodriguez, her military liaison, stepped forward. "Show them the transformation sequence." Williams nodded, her hands dancing through the holographic controls. The Chimera-class ship in the display began to move. Its hull plates shifted and realigned, the entire structure flowing like liquid metal while maintaining perfect structural integrity. "Impossible," one of the Confederation engineers muttered. "The power requirements alone would be impossible with traditional systems," Williams agreed. "But we found inspiration in another Earth creature." The display showed a jellyfish, its transparent form pulsing with bioluminescence. Living creatures don't waste energy fighting against forces. They use them. The prototype demonstration continued in the construction bay below. The first Chimera-class ship, ESS Leviathan, hung in its berth like a sleeping giant. Its hull gleamed with the newly developed metamaterial that allowed it to change configuration on demand. The outer layer, Williams explained, is composed of millions of microscopic plates, each capable of rotating and realigning independently. But the real breakthrough is how they're powered. Rodriguez took over the explanation, knowing the military implications would interest their audience. Each plate contains quantum vacuum energy collectors. The more force applied against the hull, the more power it generates. Enemy weapons literally make us stronger. The Confederation engineers muttered among themselves, their translator units struggling to keep up with their excited technical discussions. Williams let them process for a moment before delivering the real surprise. "But the hull is just the beginning," she said, bringing up new schematics. "The internal structure is equally revolutionary. We mapped the neural patterns of octopi to create a ship that can literally think its way into new configurations." The demonstration that followed left the alien engineers in stunned silence. The Leviathan received basic commands through its neural interface and responded by transforming itself. Combat mode shifted the hull plates into overlapping armor and extended weapon ports. Stealth mode flattened the profile and adjusted the outer layer to absorb sensor signals. Speed mode streamlined every surface, looking less like a warship and more like a massive sea creature. The specifications are being shared with all Confederation shipyards, Rodriguez announced. As per our new mutual defense treaties, the technology is available to all member races. Our only condition is that the engineering teams must be mixed, human and alien working together. A senior Confederation architect raised an appendage. Why insist on mixed teams? Williams smiled. Because we've learned that the best innovations come from combining different perspectives. Your advanced materials science combined with our biological inspiration. Your energy manipulation technology merged with our adaptive design philosophy. The Leviathan's first full space trial was scheduled for the following day. As the Confederation engineers filed out to prepare, Williams and Rodriguez stood watching their creation through the observation window. They still don't fully understand, do they? Rodriguez asked quietly. That we're not just building better ships. Williams shook her head. No, they don't. We're creating a whole new way of thinking about space travel. These ships aren't just vessels. They're living proof that advancement doesn't always mean more powerful technology. Sometimes it means smarter technology. Below them, the Leviathan's hull rippled slightly, like a dreaming sea creature. Tomorrow it would show the galaxy that humanity's greatest contribution to space travel wasn't more powerful engines or stronger weapons. It was teaching ships how to evolve. Admiral Jessica Thompson watched the tactical display aboard her flagship, ESS Normandy, as the largest Volt swarm fleet ever recorded emerged from hyperspace. The crystalline ships moved with perfect synchronization, their formation blocking out the stars like a sheet of living ice. Status of the Third Fleet, she demanded, her neural interface humming with incoming data from every ship under her command. All ships report ready, Admiral. Captain Robert Mason responded. The new Chimera-class vessels are in position, and the Wolfpack squadrons are moving to their assigned coordinates. The Confederation's main battle fleet, caught off guard by the massive surprise attack, was struggling to form a defensive line. High Commander Zixtel's voice crackled through the quantum comm. Admiral Thompson, we're registering 3 times more swarm ships than in any previous engagement. Our tactical computers cannot process this many variables. Thompson's lips curved into a slight smile. Then stop letting computers do your thinking, Commander. Third Fleet, execute Operation Undertow. The human fleet moved with fluid grace, their Chimera-class ships shifting forms like massive sea creatures. The Normandy led the charge, its hull rippling as it adapted to the incoming fire from the swarm's advance forces. First wave incoming, Mason reported. They're using a new type of crystalline energy weapon. Perfect, Thompson responded. Let's show them why adaptation beats preparation. All ships, activate resonance protocols. The bouncer shields across the Third Fleet synchronized their frequencies, creating a complex web of gravitational distortions. As the swarm's energy weapons struck, they were caught in the web, their power redirected and amplified. Returning fire, Mason announced. Shatterstorm torpedoes modified to match new crystal frequencies. The space between the fleets lit up like a newborn star as hundreds of torpedoes found their marks. Swarm ships began to splinter and shatter, their perfect formation disrupting as they tried to adapt to the unexpected attack pattern. They're responding, Thompson noted, watching the tactical display. See how they're shifting to engulf us, just like we predicted. Signal the Confederation fleet to fall back to secondary positions. Zixtel's voice was tense. Fall back. We'll be surrendering the entire sector. Trust me, Commander. Sometimes you have to let the tide go out before it comes crashing back in. The swarm pressed forward, their vast numbers seeming to guarantee victory. But as they moved to encircle the retreating Confederation forces, Thompson's true strategy revealed itself. "All wolf packs, execute slingshot jumps on my mark," she commanded. "Chimera units, shift to full combat configuration. Let's show them why you never corner a predator." The Third Fleet's ships vanished in a series of perfectly coordinated slingshot jumps, reappearing inside the swarm's formation. The Chimera-class vessels transformed, their hulls extending weapons in configurations the swarm's tactical systems had never encountered. "They're trying to adapt," Mason reported, excitement clear in his voice. "But their crystalline structures can't reconfigure fast enough to match our transformation speed." Thompson nodded, her neural interface giving her perfect awareness of every ship's position. "Release the gravitic mines. Let's turn their own momentum against them." Thousands of tiny devices activated simultaneously, creating a complex network of gravitational distortions. The swarm ships, packed tightly together in their attack formation, found themselves being pulled in multiple directions at once. "Confederation forces," Thompson broadcast. "Target these coordinates with everything you have. Show them what happens when humanity and the Confederation work together." The combined firepower of both fleets, guided by human tactical innovation and enhanced by Confederation technology, struck the trapped swarm ships. The result was beyond even Thompson's expectations. The crystalline fleet, unable to adapt quickly enough to multiple simultaneous threats, began to break apart. When the last swarm ship shattered, silence fell across the battlefield. The tactical display showed debris spreading across an area larger than Earth's solar system, glittering like stardust in the light of nearby suns. "Battle assessment," Thompson requested quietly. 87% of the swarm fleet destroyed," Mason reported. "The remainder have retreated beyond sensor range. Confederation casualties at 12%, Third Fleet casualties at 8%. High Commander Zixtel's voice came through again, but this time with a tone of profound respect. "Admiral Thompson, I believe we've just witnessed the end of the swarm threat. Your tactics, they were unlike anything I've seen in 3 centuries of warfare." Thompson looked out at the starfield, where human and alien ships now moved together in perfect coordination. "That's because we stopped trying to overcome nature's laws, Commander. We learned to dance with them instead." The Mars orbital shipyards stretched across the red planet's horizon like a constellation of artificial stars. High Commander Zixtel stood at the observation deck of the newly completed Unity station, his silvery skin reflecting the glow of construction beacons as he watched the latest Chimera-class vessel take shape. "If someone had told me 5 years ago that I'd be requesting Earth designs for my personal flagship," he mused to his companion, "I would have questioned their sanity." Admiral Jessica Thompson smiled, her dress uniform adorned with both Earth and Confederation medals. "Amazing what can happen when we stop underestimating each other, isn't it?" Below them, robotic constructors and work crews, human and alien alike, swarmed around the massive ship's frame. Its biological-inspired design incorporated the best of both worlds. Confederation quantum mechanics merged seamlessly with Earth's adaptive technology. "The Confederation Council meets tomorrow to ratify the new treaties," Zixtel said. "Earth will have 3 seats on the High Council, more than any other member world received upon joining." "We've earned it," Thompson replied, not with pride but with quiet certainty. "Though I suspect the real changes will happen out here, in the shipyards, and on the trading routes." She gestured to a nearby construction bay where Dr. Catherine Williams was leading a mixed team of engineers through the installation of a new type of neural interface. The system would allow ships to communicate and coordinate with unprecedented efficiency, breaking down the last barriers between different species' control systems. Lieutenant Commander Reynolds reports that the new Wolfpack training program has a 6-month waiting list. Thompson continued, "Every Confederation world wants their crews to learn human tactical doctrine." Zixtel made a gesture of amused acceptance. Who would have thought that studying Earth's ocean predators would revolutionize space combat? Though I must admit, watching a Chimera-class ship transform still reminds me of those Earth videos of octopi squeezing through tiny spaces. Their conversation paused as a flash of light announced the arrival of the ESS Leviathan, returning from its latest patrol. The ship's hull rippled like living metal as it adjusted its configuration for docking, demonstrating the perfect fusion of natural grace and advanced technology. The Volt Swarm sent another peace delegation, Thompson mentioned. They're requesting permission to send observers to study our ship design principles. Apparently, they're fascinated by the idea of voluntary transformation rather than forced adaptation. From enemies to students, Zixtal shook his head in wonder. Though they're not the only ones learning, the Confederation has had to reevaluate many of its fundamental assumptions. We thought we had reached the peak of possible advancement, only to discover we'd been looking at everything from the wrong angle. A small transport ship passed their window, carrying a group of cadets to the newly established Joint Space Academy. Humans and aliens sat together, studying both Confederation theory and Earth's practical experience. The sight made Thompson smile. "You know what the cadets call it?" she asked. "They say they're learning to think like an Earthling. It's become a compliment across Confederation space." Zixtal turned to face her fully. "We owe your species an apology, Admiral. We mistook technological advancement for superiority. You showed us that true evolution isn't about having the most powerful technology. It's about using what you have in ways no one else imagined." The observation deck's holographic display activated, showing status reports from across known space, trade routes through once impossible regions, joint research projects breaking new ground in science and engineering, and defense fleets where human and alien ships moved in perfect coordination. "The next generation won't even remember when we were considered primitive," Thompson observed. "They'll grow up in a galaxy where humanity's contributions are fundamental to everything we do in space." "Perhaps that was our greatest discovery," Zixtal replied. "Not the technology or the tactics, but the simple truth that every species, no matter how seemingly primitive or advanced, has something valuable to teach." As if to emphasize his point, the massive ship under construction below them chose that moment to test its adaptive hull system. The plates shifted and flowed like scales on a great cosmic serpent, reflecting the light of Mars in patterns that would have been impossible under the old design philosophy. The ship's name became visible as the hull stabilized. Unity. Not just a name, but a promise for the future, one where humanity's rise to power had led not to conquest or dominion, but to a genuine transformation of galactic civilization.